Hello. Welcome to the Total Truth Show. I'm Aldwyn Altuney from the Gold Coast in Australia.
And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from San Diego, California, in the USA.
And we have the amazing Sherri Leopold with us today. A little bit about her before we introduce her. She is the CEO of Option Creators Inc. And she's a mentor, professional speaker, and leader of the Stop Self-Bullying movement. She's a 10-time best-selling author, worked in the network marketing direct selling industry for over 25 years. She's experienced in speaking, mentoring, and team building to transform your life physically, financially, and live the life you deserve. She is an 200K VIP independent brand promoter for Level, a leader in health and wellness industry, and currently lives in Springfield, Illinois, in the US of A. As a veteran in this industry, she remains passionate about encouraging others to live their best life and create financial freedom. She's extremely passionate about helping stand in their personal power and crush their business goals. Sherri enjoys writing, reading, painting, and drawing in her free time. And we are going to come back to her website. It's sherrileopold.com if you want to find out more, all the way from Springfield, Illinois. Welcome, Sherri.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you amazing people. I'm so happy to have the opportunity.
It is great to have you with us. And we do have a hot topic for you today, the truth about choosing powerfully. I love this topic. Now, when it comes to choice, Sherri, how important is choice in our day-to-day life?
I would say it's probably the number one thing that people have control of that they don't think they have control of. But yet it's the number one strength we all have. Inherently, we have it. We have total, complete choices about everything. How we feel, what we think about, what we eat, who we associate with. We have choices always, in infinite choices every day. So that's why a pet peeve of mine is when I hear people say, "Oh, I didn't really have a choice." No, you had 1,000 choices. That's actually not true. You have many, many choices. So
Yes.
that's my thing. That's my truth, man. You have unlimited choices every day.
Yes. And the thing is that we apparently have about 60,000 thoughts per day. And so that's a lot of choices to sift through as to which way we're going to go in life. And so how do you know when you've made the right choice?
I think the thing is not necessarily that you have to know. I think that's also a choice that can be made powerfully. You don't actually have to know what the exact right choice is. Because here's the reality. If you make a good choice or a bad choice, as we like to refer to them, you're going to have another one. Even if you make a choice that didn't work out like you wanted, you're going to have a million more. So like we get stuck in this cycle of indecision because we're worried about making a bad choice, right? So we do nothing. And then sometimes things happen that are out of our control. And if we had just made a choice and then just responded to what happened, we'd have another choice. That's what it is. It's a rolling, revolving cycle of choices. And when you realize it's not just about making the right one, it's so empowering.
I love that. And we were chatting about this actually in the green room before we went live, is actually how hard we can be on ourselves sometimes with the choices we make, or we regret choices sometimes, or I wish I said this, or I wish I did that, and da da da. And all we do is we beat ourselves up instead of getting the learning, right? And the quicker we get the learning, the quicker we can move through. What are your thoughts on that, Ken? Oh, we're just
there we go. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I wanted Sherri to share what she shared with me when I said, "Oh, I hope I don't make this mistake tonight," or I hope I don't make that mistake tonight. What was the saying you gave me? Because I thought it was really, really powerful.
See, the thing is, even if you do it in some way, or if I show up on this interview and I think, oh, why did I look like that? Or why did I say that? The reality is that I am an unrepeatable miracle, as are each and every one of you. You are not repeated anywhere in this universe. Even if you do it poorly in your estimation, nobody can do it poorly like you. So, like, that in and of itself is your magic, right? Show up as yourself, whatever way it is, love however it is you showed up, and your joy will come through. Like, that's a choice to make, and that's a powerful choice to make, right? To just say, whatever way I show up right at this moment is the way I was intended to do it. Somebody was waiting either for my screw up, the way I said it, whatever. Somebody was waiting for you, and that's why that came out that way. Just be in the moment and say that that was a choice I made, and here it is. Not good or bad, just what is.
Yes, love that. And, regret is massive for a lot of people. In fact, the number one regret of the dying is living a life not true to yourself. Now, that's a whole interesting concept in itself, isn't it? Being true to yourself. And to be true to yourself, well, how does one know thyself? There's a question I put out for both of you. How does one know thyself?
I kind of feel like that's an interesting question. How does one know themselves? I think it comes down to, how would I answer that? I think it comes down to knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, but in those weaknesses, knowing that you have an opportunity to grow. And that's actually something that's a passion of mine. And I kind of teach this concept in what I do in my program. And it's mindset. And a lot of times people approach their circumstance or their trial with a fixed mindset. There's actually two different types of mindsets. And there's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. Most people approach life and circumstances with the fixed mindset. The problem with the fixed mindset is that fixed mindset often totally sidesteps the journey of growing, of learning, and becoming wiser, because they just want to be. They just want to be there. They just want this to happen. They just want that to happen. And if they don't have the ability to do it, the whole idea of growing into that ability is not something that's within their sight. And then you have those with a growth mindset, which in different areas of my life, I am still learning to apply that. And the growth mindset is embracing the journey, embracing the ups and downs, embracing the failures, embracing falling off the horse, embracing those flat tires that cause delay in your journey, whatever that is, wherever you're going, embracing that, all of it. And one last thing I'll share here, because I also don't want to take away the light, I don't want to take away Sherri's spotlight here, but one last thing I will share here. It was a couple of years ago, I was having a conversation with a friend late at night, and we were sharing different things between each other. And he said this statement to me. He's like, "You let life control you too much." And at the time, I really didn't let that sink in enough. Later on, like about a year and a half later, I realized how true that statement is. And I began making efforts to dig myself out of that, because oftentimes when trials and circumstances come up, when difficult, trying times come up, I often fall victim to that and forget the fact that I have a choice, and I can choose to pivot or I can choose to be a victim. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Sherri.
It's a really good example, Ken. And I think you made a really important point when you said that. I heard the language you use when you said, I made the choice. And I think that is where the true empowerment comes. And that's actually why when you talk about the power of choice, it is everything, right? Because you have the choice to make the decision to enjoy the journey, however it unfolds. Not only enjoy it if it happens exactly as you design it and you want it to be, but it's making an intentional choice to just be present in your life as it evolves. And I think, when we're talking about regret and things like that, we can choose to regret, or we can choose to say, oh, this happened. I like to think that when I'm mentoring, and I do this with my clients, is I say, like, especially if I notice that their emotion is rising, I'll oftentimes stop them and say, is it necessary that you feel the emotion with what you're saying? Can you just tell me the factual thing of whatever you're talking about without that, so that it's not good or it's not bad? It doesn't have any emotion. Just share the facts. And sort of like when you peel all the emotion back from it, that's where you're able to go, okay, now I can make a choice because I'm not all revved up in one direction or another, And I think that's where the power lies. The power lies in being able to make a choice, move yourself forward, not on the basis of whether something's good or bad, but moving yourself forward in the direction that you think you want to go, right? But making the choice to be flexible, like instead of that fixed mindset, being flexible and saying, okay, well, that didn't exactly work out like I wanted. But here's the thing, even when things don't work out like you wanted, you have another choice. You get to make another choice. That's the thing. Goes back to the same thing. You have unlimited choices. That's where the power is, harnessing the understanding that you have unlimited choices every day, day after day, till you leave the earth.
Yes, I love that. There's a great saying called that just says, we make plans and God laughs.
Yeah.
We make plans and God laughs. And sometimes the more attached you are to whatever it is you want, the bigger the upset can potentially be. Now, I'll relate this as an example. I did online dating for a long time. Now, for anyone who's done any online dating, if you're not screwed up by the time you start online dating, you will be by the time you finish, right? It will literally do your head in. And by the end of years and years of online dating, I got to the point where I was just looking at online dating as having no expectations. I thought I'll just go in there and I think, well, maybe if I have a new friend out of this, that'll be a bonus, and so I was so resigned and cynical about meeting people by the end, because I'd have these high emotions. Oh, this person's amazing. Oh, this is going to be great. And then crash, right? High emotions crash. And this is where a lot of people have social anxiety now, because, you swipe right. Oh, get all excited. It's like gambling, all excited. Oh my goodness, we matched. And then, ghosting, right? Go like, where'd they go? What happened? Did I say something? What did I do? Da, da, da. And then, if you haven't done the personal development work, you will literally end up in a mess. And in fact, there's one guy I actually met online dating who actually ended up suiciding. True story. By the age of 45, he ended up suiciding. And he was a lovely man. And I think he just did too much online dating and had too many high expectations that kept getting let down. And this is the thing, is if we're not conscious of the choices we make as to how we choose to view a situation, right? Because it's our choice, and that we get excited and we think, oh, this is going to turn out amazingly. And it could be with a client as well. It could be like, oh, this person's amazing. We're going to work together with this person. They end up being a friggin' nightmare. I mean, that can happen, right? And so you think, okay, well, that was interesting. And what can I learn from that? It's all about, it's a choice again. How quickly do we choose to see the lesson, the learning? Because I do believe everything happens in life for us, not to us.
100%.
Everything is happening for us. And that is a great reframe. Rather than being the victim of your circumstances, actually looking at life as it is a constant learning, I call it the emotional, it's a roller coaster ride of life. And then we're going to times we're going to be up here, times we're going to be down here. And the quicker we can come through those low moments and get the learning, the quicker we can actually have a great experience of life, which I think that's all we really want, is we want to have a great life, don't we, in general?
Absolutely. And I think that, like, the example that you just talked about with online dating is, you set your expectation in a completely different place. It wasn't about whether will they like me, will I like them. You said maybe I'll meet somebody interesting. Like that was the intention. When the intention is not so like uh in the good or bad meter, right? And it's just like maybe I'll just meet somebody interesting. That'll be great. And you know what? What would be the harm? This is once again a choice and thought, right? But if you did online dating for a year, you met 25 people and you gain 25 new friendships. That would not be a bad thing by anyone's stretch of the imagination, unless you were looking for your own personal validation in those 25 people, in which case that is a poor choice, not a powerful choice, and you will feel bad about you. That's what it boils back down to, is you're relinquishing your power by making the choice to have somebody else tell you your value.
Absolutely. And so many people use it to feed their ego, don't they? They just, because I get a lot of approaches. Oh, you're so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. One guy, I couldn't believe the nerve of him. His very first sentence to me was, do you want to F? I thought, who the hell, this guy about half my age. I thought, does this really work with people out there? I thought, well, maybe if he sends that to 10 different women, maybe one will say yes. And, at least he's clear about his intention. He just wants to get straight in there and F straight to the point. So I didn't respond, mind you. I did not even respond, but I was definitely in shock.
I would say, this reminds me of my I always say, when people show you who they are, you should definitely believe them.
Yeah.
You should believe them. Check.
It's interesting that you guys are talking about online dating. I remember my experience with online dating. I signed up for a website called eHarmony. And if you've had any experience with eHarmony, you know how extensive their profile is that you have to go through just to get in. And literally, I remember going through filling that out. And when I was done, I literally felt like I had been in some deep psychological exam or something like that. And I felt really drained, actually. And I was just like, what the heck just happened? And what the heck is this? And then because they're so like detailed, which I did appreciate that about it. But the thing is I had that same experience with them. It was like up and down, up and down, up and down. And I remember there was one particular person that matched everything perfectly that I was looking for, and their beliefs and everything else just totally matched and lined up. I went through the process to start communication, and then all of a sudden she disappeared. And then when I went into her profile to see why she decided not to, it was listed as other, as the reason. What's other? What is that? It's like, what do you do with that? What's other? As a reason why she didn't continue the process with me, it was other. But anyhow.
Well, now, see, I look at that and think, like what we talked about earlier when we were talking about you can't do you wrong.
Right.
Like, I think you should wear that like a crown. I am Captain Other. That's my choice. I am so good that I am other.
I love that.
That's a great way of looking at it. I like it.
That's a great reframe.
One of the other things that I wanted to mention too is, when you're going through difficult circumstances, and I know this for myself, and I see it all the time when something crazy happens in my day or something crazy happens in my schedule, and I'm just stressed out and I'm just and I've got all this anxiety. What's interesting is in the moment of that anxiety, I cannot think straight. I cannot make logical decisions. I cannot just think straight. When I take a moment, though, and I step back and I calm myself and I go, wait a minute. Okay, it's not that bad. This just happened. All of a sudden, solutions start coming up. It's when you fall prey and victim to fear, anxiety, all of those things, it actually blocks your logical pathways in your head. So you can't make logical decisions. You can't, it blocks it temporarily. And you actually end up being stuck in that. And it's not, you've got to be able to step back and go, okay, wait a minute, and give that calm, because I find every time I do that, all of a sudden there's a solution that comes up. Oh, I could do this instead. Oh, well, there's this spot in my schedule that I can schedule that instead. So that's another thing that I'll share there.
I think that's actually a good point, Ken, because, when people have these moments, where I was talking about this big emotional flood, like where everything rises up and you're thinking, what am I going to do? And you have that moment of anxiety, whether it's a schedule related thing or a relationship thing. I'm actually a licensed Dr. Amen brain trainer as well. And one of the things that popped into my head when you were sharing that is that your fight or flight is activated when that emotional powder keg goes off. And that's what you're talking about, is it sort of deflects the logical side of your thinking, kind of pushes it out of the way. And that's why one of the things, and he has a great book called Taming Your Dragons. And so one of the things that you can do is always ask yourself, when you're feeling what he calls them ants, automatic negative thoughts. So you want to crush the ants, right? And he's like, the number one thing you can ask yourself first is it true? Is this, whatever I'm telling myself, is this true? And then asking yourself if this thing that I'm having this big emotional about, is it going to matter 5 minutes from now, 5 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Because it puts it in perspective and kind of pulls you back into reality. And it also helps you give that moment of pause where you get to make a more powerful choice. And that's what it comes back to. It's that centering moment that you're talking about that gives you back the power of you. And
and what's also interesting is I also looked over here on my wall, and I need to remind myself of this more often. It's right there on my wall. And it says, every time you get upset at something, ask yourself, if you were to die tomorrow, was it worth wasting your time being angry?
Yes. Love that. Is it really? And on that point, actually, I just want to draw your attention to Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness, because when you get angry, you are right down here. You're vibrating at 150 hertz. Now, talking about the roller coaster ride of life, just look up Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness. In fact, this diagram is featured in the top of the Conscious Community Global Facebook group, which I will share the link for. And we're either expanded in life or we're contracted. Now, when you have shame around anything, which is a choice, shame is a choice, guilt is a choice, you're vibrating down here at 20 hertz. Here you're at 30 hertz, right? When you're in love and above, when you're in love, you enjoy gratitude, peace, enlightenment, you're vibrating above 520. This is gold. Dr. Hawkins' scale of consciousness, absolute gold. So just notice when you're angry, and there's times we all get angry, okay, at times. It can come on at any moment. And I think it's important to notice the emotion. When we get angry, go, okay, I'm angry right now. What am I angry about? Why is that triggering me, right? And actually just step back from the anger rather than being, controlled by the anger. You control the anger. You choose to control the anger, right? You go, okay, I'm feeling emotional. This emotion is telling me something right now, right? What is it telling me? And the minute we get conscious to it, that's when we can shift it, I believe.
Perfect spot for me to say one of my favorite sayings is that choices create change. You change your choices and your choices change. I always like to say it twice for the people in the back. Change your choices and your choices change. Because the moment you say, you know what, that person dumped me. And, obviously I was so good, they couldn't handle me. That's the switch in thought process on it. It isn't that you weren't good enough for them. You were too good for them, and changing that, framing that, and thank you so much for dumping me so that I can find who I'm meant for, right? That's in that gratitude and that love. It's going to be way up here. But here's the thing. When you make that choice, then all the choices open up for you for all the people that were meant for you. Right?
That's beautiful, Sherri. I love that. And, I'd love for each to share a pivotal turning point in our life where we made a choice, and the moment we made that choice, that everything changed. And I'd love to start, if that's okay, because this just brought me back to a memory. Back in my early 20s, when I was a journalist at the Sun newspapers, and I was quite a busy journalist, and I was looking for a place to rent because my whole goal here on the Gold Coast was to stay on the Gold Coast for 1 or 2 years and then go and live in America, go live the American dream, right? That was my goal, right? That was what I had in my head that I wanted to do. And so I put an ad in the paper saying, professional lady looking for a room to rent. And a guy responded, this guy called Lee, response said, I've got a beautiful beachfront unit that you can come and have a look at. So I went to have a look, and I gave this guy bond money, rent money. I gave him about $1,000 at the time, which was about my weekly wage in my early 20s as a journalist. Gave him about $1,000 and went away. He gave me the keys. I thought, great. And then when I went back to the place, there was like eggs in the sink. The door wouldn't shut properly. There was crap all over the floor. And I thought, I just felt really weird suddenly. I felt like this just doesn't feel right. So I knocked on the door next door and I said, you know when the guy's going to come back and clean the unit? And she said, oh, I don't know. Have you spoken to the manager? I said, oh, there's a manager here. Okay, I will go speak to the manager. So I spoke to the manager and I said, oh, I'm just moving in upstairs. Do you know when they're coming back to clean? And he was furious. He said, that guy owed me 3 weeks in rent. Oh, and he just went off his head. So the guy was renting. And I gave him $1,000 in bond money, rent money, thinking he was the owner of the place. And I got conned, right, in my early 20s. And I just could not believe what I just heard. And I was so distraught. I gave the manager the keys. I went away. I cried for about a week. I couldn't believe that I fell for that con artist. I had his phone number. Knew his name. He was known to police. It never got resolved. But then from that moment, I made a choice. And my choice was, I am not going to rent anymore. I am going to buy. And I bought a house in Southport back in 2002. And now 20 years on, I still live in that house. And I am so grateful for that experience, because now if I was to sell the house, I'd make at least $100,000, at least, right? If I sold it, I lost $1,000. Then I at the time had so much shame and guilt and felt so bad about it, so embarrassed. I couldn't share it with anyone. And now I look back and I am grateful. And you know what? The thing is that karma's a bitch. Karma comes back around. And that guy, Lee, who knows exactly what he did, right? He has to live with his choice of ripping me off. And his karma will come back tenfold to him, not necessarily from me, but from other people. And if you do bad to others, then expect it will come back tenfold. If you do good to others, it comes back tenfold. This is the law of reciprocity. And that's a big turning point of mine. So I'd love for you to each share one of your turning points on where you made a choice that actually changed your trajectory of your future, of how you chose to view that situation.
All right, I will go next. So as you were sharing, Aldwyn, I was like, okay, what's my moment of choice? And the first thing that popped in my head was this. So 2.5, 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, I was going from one online program to another, one shiny object to another, and never making ground, never really getting anywhere that I wanted. And I was frustrated most of the time because, you know, I felt like nothing was happening, nothing was working. And then it was towards the end of summer of 2020, I got involved with this program called Certified Mastery Coaching, and went through that program. I developed quite a few friends through that program, and also got my own mentor, his name is Mike. And so when I was going through that program, I made the decision through that program, made the choice that enough is enough. I'm tired of going from one thing to another. I am going to build with these coaching skills that I'm learning. I am going to now build my own program. I'm going to build my own thing. And I'm not going to go anywhere until I have made that work and it's a success. I'm going to dig my feet in. I've had enough with going from one thing to another. I did copywriting courses. I did email courses. I did all that other stuff. And, you know, I made the decision, all right, I'm stopping. I'm going to dig my feet in now, and I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to make this happen no matter how long it takes. I'm not going anywhere. And I've stayed true to that, and because of that, I've got my own program, masteryweightloss.com. And it continues to expand further and further as I learn more, as I grow more. And staying put has probably been the best thing for me, because I don't even really want to know where I would be if I just continued moving on from one thing to another. But I knew at that point I had to put a stop to it. And that's been the best decision I've ever made, because through that journey, I have learned the skill of networking. I have learned the skill of figuring out different things on my program, learning the skill of connecting with my market. Lots of different things I can go for. I mean, I don't want to take forever here, but that was, I really feel like, my pivotal choice, making the choice to stay and dig my feet in and just say, I'm staying here and I'm going to grow and I'm going to make this work.
Yeah, love that. Love that, Ken. And I can definitely relate. I've had bright, shiny object syndrome as well myself. I can totally relate to that story. Sherri, what's one of your pivotal moments where you made a choice that's changed your life?
I love the power coming when you were talking, Ken. That was really exciting. It's interesting because I wrote in one of my collaborative books that I wrote about, I wrote, my story was called Choices Create Change. Imagine that. Because I actually, in that story, I talk about, and I really think I only realized this a couple of years ago. I grew up in a home till I was 12 that had domestic violence in it. It wasn't against me, but I watched that with my mother. And I did not have a choice in that, right? And I didn't realize I had a choice not to be in it. I mean, I had a very loving father, and probably the best father that on the planet. Like, I can't imagine having a better father than I did. This was my stepfather, and I loved him. So it had nothing to do with that. But it was like living with a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. But I never knew which one was coming in the door, right? And so it made a very uncomfortable growing up situation. And there was a lot of things that kind of bubbled around in me, like, as an 11, 12-year-old, like, why do you put up with this? I mean, I had those thoughts very early on. I was like, oh my gosh. But I also didn't feel like I had any control over the situation. And, it wasn't until I was into college and I was going to school and I was in a 400 level class in counseling for my bachelor's degree. And I realized that my mother did the best she could with what she had, with what she knew. And it was a very freeing moment to have that. But what I realized just in the past couple years when I wrote that story was I did have a change that was very pivotal, and it was based on a choice. And this is why I'm also heard saying that your choice is your voice in action. So when I was 12, I was telling, I guess, my father on a weekend visit about a recent episode with my stepfather and what was going on. And he just casually said, well, you don't have to stay there. And I remember feeling like, what? Like that? I did not know that was a thing. Like, I didn't know I had a choice, right? Like, it was like this huge epiphany for me. And that's not even actually the thing that where I talk about the choice. The choice was extremely difficult to leave my mother because I had a younger sister, and there were a lot of variables involved, but I had my dad tell her, so I moved. And I know it crushed my mother. She was so upset. But what I realized when I left and went to live with my dad and my stepmom was that there was a whole different family structure that I was completely unaware of. I didn't know that people sat down to dinner and had conversations and like had family interactions, because I hadn't had that living in the environment I was in. Now, I don't, I'm not saying that to disparage my mother. My mother worked in the restaurant business and stuff, so she wasn't home at night. So it was a different schedule, right? So there were reasons why, but like I didn't know what a real like regular family home life looked like or felt like. Like, so when I made that choice, I didn't even know the choice I was making. I felt like I stepped in to Leave It to Beaver. The US people will know, but like it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was like a real thing. And it just, lots of things opened up for me with sports and school, and there were people to give me rides, and I got to do activities, and like I was like the flower like this that just bloomed, because I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world out here that I didn't know that was possible for me. So that, using my voice that one time in that little bitty small way, like changed the entire trajectory of my life. But and it's
Wow.
so funny because it's contributed to everything I do today. And you know, some people might say, "Oh, well, you know, that's terrible that you were in that situation." It's not terrible. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it, because it's who I am, is because of that, right? That
Mm.
is about making a choice powerfully. I could be like all in my trauma or whatever, but here's the reality. I am strong. I'm strong because my mother was strong in that situation. You know, she was an
Mm.
incredible example of resiliency, of fighting to keep her family together. There was a lot of positives in that. It was not all negative, but she did make the choice that she thought was best for her. But it's also why I'm very passionate about helping people see they have choices. It's, you're
Mm.
not stuck in a box. You know, she didn't need to be in that box, you know, but she didn't know that she had choices.
Yes, yes, and she would have had her reasons for staying in that, maybe for the children, for, you
Yeah.
know, staying in that relationship, as so many people do, because they don't feel they have a choice and they don't know life outside of that because it's become comfortable in
Right.
some way.
Yes,
And
uncomfortably being comfortable being uncomfortable. Perfect way to
yes.
put it.
Yes, and it's interesting, you know, you get some kids where, you know, I've seen where two kids come from the same abusive family. One kid becomes ultra successful and the other one ends up being a drug addict on the streets. You know, it's all a choice, isn't it? You know, you can be the victim of your circumstances or you can rise above it, and it can, you know, spur you forward to even more success. And you know, I love the fact that you are a stand for people being successful. And so, what are some of the tips you'd give people around that? Like, I know we're all in business here. Business is one of the most challenging things you'll ever do. What are some of your success tips, Sherri?
Sure. So I think the number one thing is really, and this also stems, and my mother just passed this a couple weeks ago, so it's very fresh in my mind that, you know, knowing who you are, what you're good at, and what your strengths are, what your core values are, knowing that like so strongly that no matter what anyone ever said to you, you'd be like, no, because this is who I am. Knowing that beyond a shadow of a doubt, no matter what anybody says, that you know who you are, and anybody can try to, you know, unvalidate that or whatever, give you some other opinion, but it's immovable. When you know that, that's one of the keys, I think, to being successful in any business, is because nobody can ever tell you you're a failure. They can never tell you you're not good enough, because you know you. And that's also a choice.
I think it extends beyond that. What you just shared, Sherri, I think it extends beyond the business, because I'm not going to share too much into this, um, but my mom, you know, I watched her in her marriage constantly get talked down to, constantly she was put in situations to where she literally felt like she never really had any choices of her own, you know. Her and my dad, which I don't even like to call him my dad, but whatever. I watched in multiple circumstances. Here's a good example. She would go to the grocery store. She would come home with groceries. And it never was encouragement. It was all, why'd you buy this? Why do we need that? Why did you buy this? And what is this? And da 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 da. At night, when she would come into the kitchen and she would fix herself a snack or something to eat. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Well, why do you need to do that? You know, and all this other stuff. Now, you know, and thankfully, 2013, she finally made the decision to leave him. And it was a very, very, very good decision, and one that came about through counsel. I had a couple really good friends come into the situation and help to counsel her and bring her into that decision. But the residue of that was, you know, when we kind of sold both of our houses and we decided to move into one apartment together. And the residue that I examined through that was she's always beating herself. She's kind of like in a beating herself up and underestimating her abilities, underestimating who she can become, who she can stand in her own power, as you say, Sherri. And, you know, that, I think, the statement that you said was something like, no, you know, I know who I am. Just stop, you know, because I know who I am and I'm standing in who I know I am. That is something that slowly but surely I've watched her take and embrace, is just that, no, I know who I am. She's still growing. There's still those little moments where she'll get confused on her phone and she'll be like, I don't know what this does, and I don't know what to do on this, and da da da. And I pick up her phone and I look at it and I'm like, well, if you look right up there at the top and you actually take time to examine that, you know, you can see what to do. But anyhow, it's not because she's incapable. It's because she's got that mind block still that has been instilled in her through constant years of put downs and the way she was treated all the time. And I could tell lots of stories around that, but you know, like I said, it's definitely celebrated that she finally let go of that in 2013. And
you know what? I just gotta say, Ken, I want to celebrate your mom for making the choice, because look at the choice she made. She changed her choices, and her choices changed. She's able to live somewhere else. She's able to have her own thoughts. She's able to do so many things today that she couldn't do that 10 years ago. Like literally her whole world has opened. And sometimes, like, this is the other thing with choices, you know, even though I feel pretty powerful most of the time, there are days where I have to give myself grace for not feeling like I'm 100%. Like, that's the other thing, that's the caveat to making powerful choices, is that you have to be able to make the powerful choice to be okay if one day you don't feel that okay. Like, right? You got to be able to say, that's powerful too, that I am powerful enough to say I give myself the grace to just be me today. And maybe me isn't the best me, but I'm just going to be who I am today.
You know, and what's really cool, and it's a pleasure for me to see, is I remember at the times late at night when I was talking to my friend who was mentoring me through all of this and the difficulty and the frustrations that I was going through before she had made the decision to finally leave him. I remember saying this statement to my friend late at night. We were both out in the hot tub and both had quite a few drinks. But I said this statement to him. I said, all I want is for her to be able to live a life that she deserves to live. That's all I want. And I feel like I got that. I feel like that was granted. And so I'm very, very grateful for that.
As is she, I'm sure.
Mm,
Because her whole
amazing.
world changed. I mean, it's beautiful.
Mm,
That's wonderful.
mm. And for some people it can happen quickly, and some people it takes a bit longer, right? And that's all a choice, right? And some people just want to be victims. They just want to be constant. They just want to live in drama. And so if
And
there's no
that is a
drama, well,
choice too.
and
That's
yeah,
a perfect thing that you said there, because that too is a choice. And I often say to people, inaction is an action.
yes,
Nothing is the same as doing something. That is a choice. Inaction is a choice. I will tell you, most of the time, it is not a powerful choice. It's the weenie choice. It's like, I'll just take whatever's given to me. And I actually have a philosophy that I explain this. I can share with you what it's called. It's called the tumbleweed philosophy. And it's like, when people live in constant indecision, you're like a tumbleweed. And so if you know what a tumbleweed is, they just roll around and they run into things, right? Sometimes they get
yes,
stuck and they can't move. That's what happens to people that don't make choices, and they don't make powerful choices. They just roll through their life reacting to whatever happens. They're waiting for life to happen to them, and then they react. And a lot of times they get stuck under the bumper of a car, or they get hooked on another branch or something, and they can't move. They're the ones saying, I don't have any choice. Not true. Tumbleweed. Break a stick off and get it moving. Make a choice. That's the thing. Don't be a tumbleweed. You know what? When you control your path by making choices, that's where your internal power is put in full gear. And the gear naturally with choices is forward momentum. It's forward. That we sometimes have to back up and take a moment of pause, but our natural motion with choice is to propel us forward.
yes,
You
I
know,
love that.
it's sorry, Aldwyn. It's interesting because you know what? I'll be the first to confess. I am still learning not to be
We all are.
not to be that tumbleweed, because I still see it in multiple areas of my life. But that's part of the journey. That's part of growing and learning.
And loving yourself right where you're at as you're learning. You know what?
Yes,
That's just the thing. I was having this conversation yesterday with somebody. I said, life is a journey, and there isn't a moment where you go, whew, finally I'm done with that. I mean, it's always something that's in process. And if you can sort of disabuse yourself of the thought that I'm only good if I've reached some spot, there's always going to be a new spot. I mean, like, this is the thing. It's all on a, like, I like to call it the number line of life, like, right. If you go, it's out to infinity. Like, there isn't like, oh, when I get to number 62, then I don't have to do anything anymore. Or I hit this amount of income, I don't have to do anything anymore. Like, that's not living. That's making not powerful choices, right? Your powerful choice is to live in the joy in the moment of each choice you make. And if things turn out and it's not a good situation, going, you know what did I learn from that? Maybe I'm never going to do that again. Maybe I'm never going to go there again. Maybe I'm not going to associate with that person. I know what that looks like. Now I'm going to avoid it. I'm so grateful that I know what that looks like now, like the apartment thing. I know what that looks like. I'm going to go over here and do this. And look what happened, right? Like, because you made a different, more powerful choice and said, hey, I'm the boss, applesauce, which I'm also known to say frequently.
What?
I'm the boss, applesauce. I'm the boss of me. I always say preschoolers have it right when they say, you're not the boss of me. It's like, that's
I love that. I love that so much. I'm getting my happy face out. That is really, really cool. I love it. I love that. That is awesome. I'm loving this conversation. And there's another great saying: you're either green and growing, or you're ripe and rotting. And as you say, every choice is, whether you feel like you're going up or down or whatever, it's all a choice at any moment.
Right.
And sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. And I know this has been quite a journey for me, because I was bullied as a kid. And we're talking about self-bullying here, right? People bully themselves. I was bullied as a kid. I never felt I belonged. I never felt seen or heard growing up. I was a first-generation Australian growing up in the Northern Beaches area of Sydney. And at the time, there were a lot of Anglo-Saxon people, a lot of people from England. They didn't really understand people from different cultures, such as from, Europe or, Asia or India. We didn't have many other cultures other than pretty much England or English, convict background, which is what Australia, 200 years ago, the convicts came here from England and they settled in here and basically wiped out half the Aboriginals, which are the only real true original Australians are the Aboriginals, the Indigenous Australians. However, now thankfully we're a lot more multicultural here and there's a lot more acceptance. But back then in the 70s, early 80s, I was born in 74, there was a lot of bullying, a lot of racism. As I said, I never felt I belonged. I would at the time, during my childhood years, after going through that period of feeling invisible, I actually went through quite a big period of self-harm, because I did not want to be here on the planet. I became a heavy drinker, a heavy smoker through my teenage years. I ended up rebelling against my parents, ended up getting kicked out of home at 15, which was my dad's choice at the time to kick me out of home. And I tell you what, if I was my dad, I would have kicked me out of home at 15 too, because for 2 years, everything dad said to do, I did the opposite. Now, I didn't know that what dad was telling me to do or asking me to do is because he loved me. I was not feeling the love. I was not feeling like I belonged at home. I was not feeling like I belonged at school. But him kicking me out of home was one of the best things that could have happened to me, because in that 6 months where I got kicked out of home, I lived with a musician. His mum was an alcoholic, sister was dealing drugs. After 6 months of that, there was a turning point where I saw my boyfriend sleep with my best friend at the time, which of course was a choice that they made. And I just happened to see and witness. And that was fantastic that I reacted to that, because I could not believe what I saw. And I called my mum in tears, making the choice to call my mum. I cannot handle this anymore. Thinking the grass was greener on the other side, I then realized how great I actually had it at home. And thankfully, my mum accepted me back home. I chose then to change my environment. I went from Mossman High School to Forest High School. So from being dux of my primary school, top of my primary school, through that environment for 6 months, I failed everything in year 11, and then changed my environment, worked my butt off, and thought, I don't want to live that kind of life. And I worked my butt off. The only thing that interested me going into university was to do a media degree. And that's what happened. And that's how my life went off from there. And then, media I've seen as such a powerful tool to create change, to help impact how people think. And there's a fantastic documentary out there I highly recommend you see if you haven't seen it, called Out of Shadows. And this Out of Shadows documentary that was created by 2 Hollywood stunt guys, the very first line in this documentary is, why do we believe what we believe? Why do we believe what we believe? If you haven't seen it, it is featured in the Conscious Community Global Facebook group, which is free to join. And the fact checkers don't like it because there's a lot of truth in it. So I do recommend check it out. It will blow your mind. And it starts from primary school. We're told what to do, when to do it from a very young age. We're told to obey authority, to not listen to ourselves from childhood, right? So not only do we put up so many people with bullying from the outside, we then bully ourselves on the inside. So Sherri, please share more about this self-bullying that can happen. I know you're a big advocate for this, the Stop Self-Bullying movement.
I am. And, I always say people often get bullied first by an actual bully, which the only reason a bully exists is because they're self-bullying. I always say that's the thing. When somebody's bullying, we need to go help the bully. I might be one of the few people that believes that, but because they're doing that. And I always say, whatever they're doing to the person they're bullying, you have no idea how bad it is inside that person's head, because they're doing 5 times, 10 times worse in their own head to themselves. Because the only time they feel powerful is when they make the choice to bully you. And like in my book, I have a picture on the front cover, a picture of a bat with a foot in the grass on the bat. And it's because I always say when you're little, like 3 or 4, that's when you realize there's a bat at your feet. And that bat, everyone has one. That bat ends up getting words on it when people say things to you like, why are you so short? Or your hair is funny. Like, look at your curly hair. Or, you know, like, why don't you have hair? Like, right? Like, there's all different kinds of things, but they elicit feelings that are not good in us, or we feel like this is what makes me weird. I have red hair, I have freckles, I have this, I have glasses when I'm little, you know, whatever. And it's almost always between like 3 and 5 when you realize that bat is there and words start getting put on it and you feel like stupid or you're weird. Like words get on that bat, right? And the problem is you feel, as that little kid, you feel bad, right? And then you have that sort of internal like, and you go tell the teacher, so and so called me this or said I'm this, and they say, well, that wasn't very nice or whatever. But that doesn't really allay for a child. That doesn't really make them feel better. So they go home and then they tell their mom, and then they might go tell their friend on the playground that so and so said this. So they now you've told like 3 people, right? That's where I say the self-bullying is. So you only get bullied once, but every time you retell it, that's you self-bullying. That's you picking up the bat and hitting yourself, retelling it, you know, instead of making the choice to say, you know, kind of like the ants, is it true? Will it matter? Like this happens in the workplace all the time. You know, somebody has a tone and then there's this big blown out discussion thing in someone's head. They haven't even talked to anyone. Well, they think I'm this or that, and they've had some conversation in their head and they said whatever, and that must mean this. Like, and you know, none of it actually happened except in the person's head, but they felt bullied. And so then they go tell the coworker and they go tell the supervisor and they go home and tell their husband, they call their 3 girlfriends, they tell somebody on the way home, like, right? That's you beating yourself with it instead of saying, you know, is that true? No. Is it going to matter 5 months from now? No. Will it keep me from getting a promotion? No.
You know,
right? We're not taught that.
It's interesting because this is like firing off some triggers for me, you know, because I do this to myself all the time and I catch myself in it all the time. So it's something will happen at the gym or whatever. Maybe somebody didn't like the fact I'm using so many different things for my crazy cardio routine and I'm taking up a lot of space. And every once in a while I get one of these people that just, they just, most of the time I'm able just to let it be water off my back. But every once in a while I'll get a situation that happens and I'll think it's rolled off my back. I'll get home. And then later on that night, it starts replaying. It starts replaying. It starts replaying. And then it turns into something that it never was in the beginning. And then it turns into something worse. And then it turns into anxiety. Then it turns into I can't get it out of my head. Then it turns into I'm waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning with it churning through my head. I'm worrying about this. I'm worrying about that because it's turned into something that it never was in the first place. But
and you know what? Here's my cue to say it's the choice to make it's time to make a powerful choice, right? This is your truth. This is the moment of truth. Listen, do I really believe that this is true? Did this really happen this way? And if it did, sometimes it might be like, yeah, it really did happen. So you still have a choice, remember, because they're unlimited and they keep coming. So the next choice you get to make is, how am I going to feel about that? I'm going to feel like, wow, they must be in awe because I can do my cardio routine in that big of a space and they don't know how. Like, right? Listen, when they say, it doesn't matter what you tell yourself, like I'm going to win or I'm going to lose. Either way, you're right? It's like that saying, it doesn't matter what you tell yourself, I can or I can't. You're right. Like, so in this particular case, it doesn't matter whether the situation is actually true or not. It matters what you said on it, right?
Exactly. I think a lot of times though, we do that and we just don't realize it. It can even be like, here's another really perfect example. Because I see a lot of people do this, as myself included. I'm definitely guilty of this one. So texting. When you send a text to somebody and they don't reply back in the time that you have set in your head that they should reply back, now that the little voice inside your head is playing around, and eventually it's going to get around to they're mad at you. You've done something, blah, 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 and we do this all the time. And text messages.
Or they were driving, or they were peeing, or they were at dinner.
Right.
Like, the choices are endless of what you tell yourself. You have, and it's literally a retraining of your brain to focus on the powerful choice. This is what it is. This does not happen overnight. This is a process. And this is something that you continue to learn as you go on. But also, as I said before, you have to be able to give yourself the grace to go, I didn't catch myself on that one, and that one went way wide. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter at what spot you catch yourself in the process, Ken. You still have a choice at any moment to say, that's a bunch of load of crap. I'm going to go for a walk and walk that off or whatever. Or I'm going to sit down and write 10 things I'm grateful for. Because I like to really bring a lot of light to that gratitude thing. It's very high up on your funnel. I know, Aldwyn, but the thing is about that is that, really gratitude and negativity, they cannot coexist at the same time. So usually when you're doing those degrading, self-bullying things, if you can do something that is anchored in gratitude, usually it will supersede that. It will push that out in a way, and it will lose its power over you. Gratitude always will have the higher energy power. It will always uplift.
Yes.
100%.
Oh, I love this. I love this conversation. There's so much I want to say on this. I want to say this is gold. Hurt people, just on what you were saying earlier, Sherri. Hurt people.
Yes.
And it brings me back to a memory with a mentor of mine from the past, a guy called Ben Harvey from Authentic Education. He said there's 3 steps to healing. The first step is awareness.
Yes.
The second is accepting without making yourself right or wrong. Accept yourself as you are, as you're not. Acceptance. And the third is appreciation. A lot of people forgive people, but when you forgive people, often it's still making the other person wrong. So when you get to a point of actually being appreciative. So for example, my story with the guy that ripped me off, right? I actually am so grateful for Lee right now, because if Lee hadn't ripped me off $1,000, I wouldn't have bought this house that I'm in right now, which of course was a choice that I made. It was a positive choice moving forward. I mean, I could have got very depressed, got on drugs and killed myself. I mean, that could have been another choice I could have made from that situation, but thankfully I didn't do that. And so everything is a gift. And another thing it just reminded me of was one of my friends, a guy called Kurik Ashley, who's a success coach here on the Gold Coast, from America originally. He wrote a book called How Would Love Respond? How would love respond? And that's a great question to ask whenever you find yourself beating yourself up. Right? How would love respond? And having that self-compassion, that self-love, filling your own cup up so you can help others with the overflow.
100%. And I often say, I know you said hurt people, and it's a very common phrase. I also add to that, because I write this in my book, that broken people try to break people. Like,
yes.
That's also true. And when you understand that concept, that broken people try to break people, you have space for compassion for those people. Right? Because you know what they're doing. When you see what they're trying to do to you, kind of like in reference, Ken, to your dad, like he was a broken person trying to break some people in the house, right? Like that's the only thing that made sense to him, because misery loves company. And he was so miserable, he needed the company. And so that's why he worked relentlessly to break you down so that you would not be, quote unquote, better than him. And that is a choice, right? It's not a very powerful choice, but the only time he felt powerful or feels powerful is when he is doing that to somebody else. And that's where the bat comes in. And once you know that bat is there, that A, for me, I call it being an ace. It's accepting and acknowledging that you know you're doing that. Is you put your foot on the bat, you stand on it. I always say if you put one foot on the bat, it's really hard to pick the bat up and repeat it, but you can probably knock yourself over and pull it up and still beat yourself. It's when you implement the C, which is changing your behavior and changing your choices, right? That's putting both feet on the bat. Now, nobody else can come pick that bat up and beat you with it or write on it without your permission. And you can't pick it up either. Because when you put all your weight on that bat, they can't pick it up. You can't pick it up. And that's the evolving into that person who is full of self-love, who is filled with gratitude, who knows that they are the master of making choices in their life, and powerful choices, because they know who they are and they love themselves exactly as they are. No qualifiers. Not when I do this, not when I lose weight, not when I do that. You'll never lose the weight. You know this, Ken. You'll never lose the weight if you don't love yourself when you're big or fat or whatever, because you can lose all the weight and you're still you. You got to look in this mirror and love this right now, how it is right now.
Yes, I love that, Sherri. And that's the thing. And Ken's dad's dad probably abused him, and his dad's dad probably abused, and it goes right down the line. So we can make a choice to end this generational trauma that can happen, right? Where people abuse people, abuse people, abuse people. It's another way you can say it. And this is absolutely gold, this conversation. This can totally change lives for those who really take this on board, what we're sharing here. Years and years of wisdom, and putting the time into doing the inner work and to nurturing yourself. It's been quite a journey for me as well, I must say, because there's many times I've beaten myself up. And as a high achiever, the trap can be that no matter how much you achieve, it never feels like it's enough, right? And so that's where, as Sherri was saying, enjoying the journey, enjoying this exciting journey of life. And even looking at the last 2 years or so since COVID came about, now there's some people that have totally fallen off the planet. In fact, we know there's 4 times the suicide rates that have happened in the last 2 years. So we know a lot of people have not coped well with COVID, right? They have made it mean all sorts of things. And then there's others that have pivoted, that magic word, pivoted, or they've reinvented themselves, and there's more millionaires created out of the biggest downturns than ever before, interestingly. So it's all about how we choose to see the situation. And I always say, well, no matter what is going on in the world that we can't control, as in what the governments are saying, or the lockdowns, or all of that stuff that we can't control, what they're trying to put onto us, we can choose how we are going to respond. So here's an example. I just went on a plane on the weekend down to Sydney. They said mask wearing is mandatory. Now, there were about probably 70-80% of people were wearing masks there. And I got asked twice, do I have a mask? And I said, I'm exempt. 2 words, I'm exempt. And they didn't ask any other questions. I'm exempt. Why am I exempt? Because I went to the doctor. I said, when I wear a mask, I feel depressed. It affects my mental health. And he gave me a certificate. No one's ever asked to see my certificate. But all I know is that when I put a mask on and I gag myself, and each to their own when it comes to this is just one example of me choosing powerfully those 2 words and knowing to say those 2 words, to stand in my sovereignty as a human being, choosing not to be gagged, because we actually know now it's actually very unhealthy to wear a mask. And I have a whole video on that, which YouTube didn't like. And it's now up on my BitChute channel, and it's on my Rumble channel, by the way. Just do your own research on that one. I chose to not wear a mask. I'm exempt, and that's it. End of story. But you know, a lot of people just wear the mask, and it's like, well, if you want to gag yourself, you go right ahead, buddy. Like, I'm not going to gag myself. I don't care what you say. Anyway, I get a bit passionate about this topic, but you see, this is a choice.
Just it is, but see, that's just it. You made a choice out of self-love, right? Because you don't feel good inside. That's not how you feel well. And I think we aren't taught that, and it's not selfish. And I'm often heard saying, like, people cannot outlove you. And by that, I mean, to the level at which you love yourself exactly as you are is the only level that you will get that back from someone. Like when people talk about, getting, I can't even think of the word. I can't think of the word, whatever, loved unconditionally. That was the word I was trying to think. The thing is, you can't attain unconditional love from a partner unless you have unconditional love for yourself.
So true.
Because you can't receive it because you don't even know what it is.
Absolutely.
That's true. There's a couple things that came to my mind as we were talking about the journey and different things like that. I just want to take that a step further and highlight the point that enjoying the journey is absolutely crucial. But here's the key: no matter how long it takes. It might take 6 months. It might take 6 years. It might take 16 years for you to learn the lesson that you need to learn, or for you to grow through what you need to learn. You get to embrace that. And yes, I said the word get on purpose. You get to embrace that. That is a choice that you have to embrace that. But the key is no matter how long. Because I think a lot of times when there's a trial that happens, or there's some icky circumstances that are going on, and they just tend to drag out and drag out and drag out, much like this wonderful hot weather that we're having. It's just like, I'm done with it. But anyhow, it just drags and drags and drags out. And you're just like, why does it have to take so long? And why does it? Blah, blah, blah. No matter how long it takes, you're on a journey. And honestly, if I really want to put a cap on this, I will say this: your journey is not over until you die. Plain and simple.
100%. And you know what? The thing is, I always laugh. I say when they be trying to close the casket, I'll be going, just wait, just one more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing. I just want to make one more choice. That'll be me. But I think, I love that you said that, Ken. It made me actually think of, because I've been in network marketing for 25 years. And it's one of the things that I've helped so many team members along the way with is people will go, oh, you're doing that. And they make this face, or they'll like, oh, are you still doing that? Like, it's kind of like you smell or something,
You're bringing back so many memories by saying that. Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't understand that sort of concept with that. However, I think it's because we have been programmed to just assume, well, like if somebody starts out at a teller at the bank, well, why aren't you the president if you've been there 15 years? Well, maybe I'm not qualified, or maybe I don't want that position. There could be that too. Like, right, we have some programming in our head that there is some right time frame for things, and and to me, it's all just a judgy game. It's like, don't look at somebody that's in a network marketing business and say, well, why aren't you a millionaire in 2 years or 5 years, or aren't you supposed to be driving a car yet? You know what? You're supposed to not be worried about what I'm doing, because I'm making choices that are right for me. You're making choices that are right for you. And the choice you're making right now that you're trying to make for me isn't working for me. Because I'm the boss, applesauce.
That's another excellent point too. When people start badgering you, or they make some snide comment or whatever, realizing that's their story. That's not yours. They've got something going on in their life. That is their life. That is what they're going through right now. That is their whole story that's coming out of their mouth to you. Now, you have the choice to either buy into that. And when you buy into that, you become under their spell now, or you just let it go and realize that's just part of their life story and it's not yours.
Or, I mean, you take the weight of their dump.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. And once again, that's what the entire thrust of this entire show is about retaining the power that you have to make a choice in your life, about who you are, about how you show up, about what you look like, what you eat, who you hang out with, who you're in relationship with, what job you want to do. Listen, you have 100% choice. Make powerful ones.
Yes. Oh, I love this conversation.
Yeah, baby. Well,
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, we can just keep on chatting. I can't believe it's already an hour and 15 minutes almost. We have been chatting away here. And, this brings me to think about judgment, because we either judge others or we judge ourselves, which comes down to choice as well. How quick are we to judge people and judge ourselves? Just notice, my friends, who have you been judging lately? Have you been a bit harsh on yourself? You are a human being. We are imperfect, and we're perfect in our imperfections. And we do need to bring this to a close, otherwise we'll be here chatting forever. So before we go, any final words, Sherri, around how to choose powerfully?
I just want to say that, just to encourage the viewers to really take some time to really think about who you are at your core, what's important for you, how do you want to show up in the world, and stick with that. In any time anyone tries to push you off your center, you have the choice to recenter and say, no, thank you. I don't receive that because I love myself. That's what my logo is for Stop Self-Bullying. It's a heart in the palm of the hand because this is a universal stop. I don't receive that because I love myself. Make good choices.
Love that. Love that. Ken, anything else you want to say around choosing powerfully?
You know what? I do want to say this. I have also had the opportunity of being mentored by Sherri, and it's a very, very, very powerful experience. And it's one I would encourage anybody out there, if you're kind of needing help to break through self-bullying, or maybe that conversation that continues to happen in your mind and it's not good, but you can't break free of it, and all of these different things. Sherri has definitely got a power and a way of helping to guide you through that and making you more aware, helping you to make better decisions and better choices. And so anybody who's hearing this and just feels like they're stuck in that, reach out to Sherri. For one, I've had the privilege of being mentored by her, and she will give you her time. So that's my final words.
So full of wisdom here today. It's been an amazing show. Sherri, we haven't talked about the women of worth. Would you like to just quickly share about that before we wrap up?
Yes, I would. I actually developed this platform. I wanted to do something to honor Women's History Month. And so I decided that I would interview a powerful woman every day. And so I started right before it started March 1st. And it actually turned in, I decided, you know what, I want to make this a whole thing. So I've actually developed an entire platform called the Woman of Worth. And actually, one of the things that I am very adamant about is that these women are absolutely able to make the choice to say, I am worthy. I am powerful. I am writing my own history. I am creating the legacy and the life I want to live. I am literally writing my own history. And that was how I wanted to honor Women's History Month, was not necessarily by talking about women in history. I wanted to talk to women who are writing their history right now. And that's what the platform is. It's literally the people, or the women, who are standing up and standing out as that unrepeatable miracle that they know that they are, that they were born to, and creating that legacy. And it's just, we're about to head into our summit. We have a 3-day summit. You can find all the details on that on sherrileopold.com. There's a tab that says Woman of Worth. We're just about ready to open up the 2023 campaign for that. So I'm just so honored to work with such incredible women. And I know that Aldwyn's name's going to be in that 2023. So
yay! I'll be there. I don't know how I'm going to be there yet, but I'll be there. I'll be there. Don't you worry
we'll all
about
come
it.
to you. That's what we want to do. Come to Australia.
Yeah.
But thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. It is something I'm very, very passionate about. I do have a group too called I Am a Woman of Worth, which is strictly for women. And we will have a couple networking events, and there will be some speakers and different things. So if you are a woman who really wants to surround yourself with very high level quality women who really believe they are worthy, it's a great group to join. It's on Facebook.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sherri. Do you know you are our very first guest, episode 3, Total Truth Show, our very first guest. Yay! Let's celebrate that.
Thank you.
I've got my clappers here. Yay! Sherri's our first guest on Total Truth Show. We have made history here today.
Yes, we have.
We've made
Thank
history.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Pleasure. We've put the link there for you in the chat, sherrileopold.com. Go check it out. Ken also has his Patriot Fat Fighter Ken podcast. Where can people find that, Ken?
Let me get that pulled up for you. So I believe I can just quote it. So it's anchor.fm/Ken-Kleinberg. And I'm going to double check that
Ken
here.
Kleinberg on Anchor. Check that out. And Total Truth Show, we are on Facebook, so please like us there. And we are also on Anchor as well and streaming out to all the different podcast platforms. Please connect with us there. Also, we have next week, the Global Good News Challenge is starting for September. We've got a 9-day challenge starting anytime from next Monday. And this is all about sharing gratitude and good news and lifting the energy on the planet, helping to decrease depression and suicide rates. Everyone who completes the Global Good News Challenge for September will get a free ticket to the free Publicity Secrets Masterclass worth $197. That's coming up on September 15. And we have all those links for you. Conscious Community Global Facebook group. When you get a spare 100 hours, just go check out all the documentaries featured in the top of that group. You will love it. Here's all my links here at linktree/Aldwyn. And Ken has just popped his in there. Beautiful. We'll put that in there.
And then I will also get my link tree for you as well.
Excellento. Stay tuned for Ken's link tree coming through.
And you guys can find all mine, all those things on my SherriLeopold.com too.
SherriLeopold.com.
There's
all
my
our
link
links. Excellent. And Ken's link. Any final words anyone else would like to share?
I'll just share my hashtag, which is make good choices. That's my favorite hashtag. Make good choices, and choices create change.
Hashtag make good choices. My favorite hashtag is hashtag Global Good News Challenge. And what's yours, Ken?
I don't know if I have one yet.
Hashtag love. Apparently that is the most popular hashtag on Instagram. Hashtag love. Keep spreading the love. Keep
love yourself most. That's one of my pieces of advice. Love yourself most.
Yes. Give me an E. Give me an S. Yes. Love yourself.
I suppose my hashtag would be exposing corruption.
Oh, hashtag exposing corruption. Total Truth Show. Hashtag exposing corruption. Oh, I like that. Okay. Nothing but the truth. That's what we stand for here.
Nothing but the truth. Yes. Total Truth Show and nothing but the truth. So help us God.
Nothing but the truth. So help us God. Sherri, Ken, and Aldwyn. So help us all. Thank you so much for joining us. As Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And as I say, shine bright and light up those around you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Sherri. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Wrapping up now, an hour and 23. We have done awesome. Fantastic show. If you like what you've seen, those watching us, please share the love. Let us know in the comments what's something you got out of this today. What's an action you're going to take moving forward. Share the love. Subscribe to Media Queen TV on YouTube. Like the Total Truth Show page. Check out Sherri's awesome stuff. Any final words from anyone else here before we end the broadcast?
Reach out to Sherri, you guys. Anybody who's stuck in their journey, anybody who's stuck, I just gonna say, you will not be disappointed. I promise you that. That is my promise to you.
Thank
Beautiful. And Sherri,
you. I
before
appreciate you.
we go, anything else from you?
You know what? I think this is just an example of what happens. I mean, you can see on the screen the mutual respect and admiration of all of us for each other. And that's what happens in your life when you make good choices. You choose people who vibrate at the level that you do, and amazing things happen, which you just watched. So
Yay.
hashtag make good choices.
Make good choices. And you are a human vibrator. Hashtag you are a vibrator. And we are vibrating in different frequencies. And I love the way we have been vibrating here on this show. This is very cool. Thank you so much once again. Thank you, Sherri. Thank you, Ken. And lots of love to you wherever you are in the world. Mwah. We'll see you again soon. Bye.